Welcome for another episode to live and contribute a little bit more every day from the heart. I'm Anne-Claire Meret and I'm very happy to welcome today Fabrice Maravigna, which is a dear friend of mine, also French speaking, but this is going to be our first, I think the first one, episode in English, and we have many other episodes in French. Please, if you speak French, go listen to the other episodes because they're very interesting. You're going to discover Fabrice's journey, many topics that we've covered together, a lot of things about money, about crypto, about sovereignty, and don't miss them. If you speak English, welcome for this episode, and it's going to be easy for you. If you're French speaking and if you're making the effort, thank you so much for making the effort. If your English is not so good, go on YouTube and you can put subtitles for this episode. Fabrice, welcome. Thank you for being here from the US. So we have a huge time difference. It's the morning for me, it's the evening for you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Anne-Claire. It's always a pleasure to connect with you. hmm
For the people who don't know you, although in my community a lot of people know you, can you please make a brief introduction?
yeah, okay, sure. So I'm 40 and I was born in south of France near Montpellier and I left when I was 23. I went to Australia and it was a long time calling. I wanted to go there for 6 or 7 years, but then when it finally happened, everything changed for me. I had an activation, so to speak. I visited a sacred place over there called Isles Rock, or Uluru in the native language of the Aboriginals, and it's considered to be one of those activated energetic center of planet Earth, just like the Pyramid of Giza and Lake Titicaca and all those incredible places around the world where if you go there, you really feel something. And so at that time, I was just coming out of hospitality. I was in a lot of pain without knowing it, just from my upbringing. And I had a lot of addictions. I had a lot of compulsions. I had a lot of anger in me. Uh, but climbing this rock really changed something. And the following week, I did my first Vipassana, which is a 10-day silent meditation. This changed a lot of things in my perceptions. After that, I took on a yogic journey where I had to deconstruct most of my beliefs, most of my identity. And so I did a lot of experiments with eating. I became vegetarian and then vegan and then fruitarian. And then I did a lot of fasting. I become like a detox expert kind of guy. But then we will speak about this later in this talk
Mhm.
today. The outcome of that experimentation brought me back to where I started with nutrition specifically. But during those years, I was receiving a lot of keys, but I was also very ungrounded, and I was receiving a lot of keys. I discovered plant medicine. I did that for 4 years, like on and off, like 3 or 4 ceremonies per year between 2012 and 2016, and did a lot of everything I could really come across that would give me a direct experience instead of trying to extrapolate my ideas and opinions from science or what I've heard on TV or what my parents even told me. I had a need, a feel to double check and investigate a little bit the nature of reality. And so, after several years of doing meditation, for like 17 years, it was a whole journey. I realized that our physical bodies are avatars, they are a piece of technology. And so, during those years, I suppose I came online, just like a lot of brothers and sisters. And what coming online means to me is just to realize that I was born in one illusion after the next. I was living in a matrix. I was playing someone else's game. I was complaining a lot in the past. But then through that awakening process, so to speak, I just, I got my life in order. Um, And in a nutshell, I lived for 10 years in Australia. Then I moved to Bali in Indonesia for 7 years. And I traveled a lot. I went to India, like all kind of places in that quest of spirituality. And I think in this podcast today, and Claire will talk about spirituality and stuff like that for sure. um, yeah, I just got in touch more with my body, with energy and the human body capabilities. On that journey, I came across crypto. That was 8 years ago. This really changed my financial life and took me out of survival and misery into a place where I could really start to be more of myself, whatever that is. Um, and yeah, I think that's probably enough to give a context, but I just want to emphasize that I'm just a regular dude like most of us out there, except that I had the courage to go and explore life outside of my comfort zone. And I really enjoyed exploring firsthand, having those direct experiences. And this helped me somehow to acquire um, inner peace and some kind of wisdom as well, in a sense. I mean, I shouldn't say that, but I feel
Yeah, you
wiser
can.
than when I was 20. That's what I mean. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, in order to walk this path, you've made mistakes and you've learned so much about yourself. It's not really mistakes, it's just discoveries. And then this is, yeah, I understand where you come from. And I guess it's the same for all of us. And I remember when I met you, you were so different. It was a whole different chapter of your life. You were so thin. You were
Mhm.
like super skinny when I met you. And since then we've been in touch, especially since COVID. And once again, I would like to thank you for your presence in my life, because just having you is kind of an anchor. Just knowing that you exist in the world and that you're there and that you're doing the research and that we agree on so many things and that you speak your truth brings a lot of comfort that together we can accomplish things. And even if the world gets harder and things turn to shit, there is you, there is me, there are many of us, and we can do better all together because we raise the awareness, because we speak the truth, because we're not afraid of saying it. Although a lot of people think that we're just crazy, but there are more and more crazy of us among us. So it's just, it feels good. So thank you for that.
Yeah. Thank you for your words. Straight to my heart. And yeah, same here. As we wake up and we come online, and it's a resonance thing, right? So we meet the others. We meet the people who are truly meant to be on our path to support us
Yeah.
and accompany us. So thank you for your words of acknowledgement, and I feel the same with you, and Claire.
Thank you.
So what is it that you'd like to?
Well, I'd like to start with what we finished with on the last episode, which was in French, which was the journey of coming back to your body, because there
Mhm.
is a lot of yeah, this thing of a lot of people want to touch the spirit and connect with source, and in order to do that they need to detox, because we need to detox, all of us, because we're polluted. So that's the journey you went through when you touched points with spirituality, and then you detoxed, you become a vegan, meditation and all of that.
Mhm.
And then what happened? How did you start again eating more diverse, and then how did you get into more meat eating, and what happened on the journey, and how did you feel about it?
Okay, well, that's an awesome question, because I think so many of our brothers and sisters during the activation or awakening phase, this is kind of a non-negotiable. People are gonna to have at some point, they're gonna to have to try just different things just to see how it feels for them. And like you said, we are born in a world that is so toxic, not just with the food, what's in the water, all the pesticides, all the antibiotics, all the fluoride, all the hormones, all the vaccines, like not just that, but also toxic with the what comes through our senses. So the movies we watch, the lyrics in the music industry that we may listen to, politics, everything. And for me, when I was like 23, I was into smoking weed. I was bartender. I was in hospitality. My life was a party. I thought I had no problem, and everybody around me was miserable. And my life was a party. And I had all these lovers. I felt so free and so empowered. Um, but then through Vipassana, I realized, like, okay, I need to, I need to tune in. I need to tune in my body. How I got into vegetarianism was through my former partner. She was experiencing issues with her digestion and other things. And as a lover, I was just very supportive. And I was like, oh, you know what? I'm just going to tag along and see if that complements my meditation and all the new stuff that I was discovering. And this indeed took me on the deepest journey in the world, because when you change how you eat, you also change how you think. And it's like it's like you are a radio, and as you change the intake of food, you can now decode or tap in different frequencies. So we live in a world where there is a broadcast 24/7, a broadcast of thoughts, and the one that we can tune in has a lot to do with how we vibrate. Okay, so that's kind of something I'd like to put just for context. So I did about a year and a half, 2 years of vegetarianism. Then, of course, that was not enough. So we went vegan. And then vegan was hard, because obviously it's like, sure, you can cook a lot of delicious food, which is what we were doing. Uh, but that wasn't enough. So we went raw vegan. Now we were like the best. We were like not eating anything processed. We were like so clean. It doesn't get more squeaky clean than being a raw vegan, does it? Actually, it does. Fruitarianism came into the picture. So, back in 2012, I was teaching people classes on cooking raw vegan. So even though you're not cooking, it's what I mean is, like, you teach people how to be a raw vegan. Basically, I was that in 2012. And then further down the path, I went for fruitarianism, which is, surely that's truly just the food that God wants us to have, because it's an offering. If you don't eat it, it falls off the tree and it gets rotten. So all we have is fruits and nuts. Because if you are vegan and you eat a salad, a lettuce, or a carrot, the carrot is not happy. It has a life and a consciousness of its own. So that's the thinking. That's a rationale. So then I was a fruitarian and stuff, and couldn't even have a spoon of honey because now it's like slavery for the bees. And basically, I found myself so deep in the whole conversation that I was loving animals, but I was hating everybody else around me. Meat eaters were stupid people who have no heart, who are not connected to life. Like, that's how I was thinking back then. And so I furthered my journey deeper and deeper, and I was also very fit. I was running marathons, with a little date to run 42K. It's probably not the healthiest thing to do retrospectively, but back then I was really pushing myself, testing my limits. And yes, my consciousness exploded and accelerated. But slowly, my physical body, I was very, very thin. Like any true raw vegan or fruitarian, it's very difficult to be big. I'm not saying impossible, it's just difficult. And if you end up eating 20 kilos of fruits or veg every day or whatever, it also put a lot of strain on the digestion. And you end up in the long term having issues with your insulin production and pancreas and gallbladder. And look, I feel I've been through all those rabbit holes, to be honest. So I don't need anyone else's opinion on the subject now, because my experience was so potent and so long. I did that for about 12 years, or maybe, I don't know exactly the dates, but somewhere around that. Nearly 2 cycles of 7 years, I was exploring back and forth with going back from raw vegan to just vegan, and then having a month of vegetarian, and then I went back to meat and I was very, very sick. So I went back to veganism, but then it didn't work. And I was just confused like that for so many years. Eventually, after after my last water fast, uh, in Bali. I followed a 10-day water fast by 30 days raw vegan, and then that was it. And then I just felt, wow, I really look like a little skeleton. And so did my wife. We were both very, very tired and lethargic. As a man, I couldn't bench press or squat more than my body weight, that's for sure. But it was more the stamina, the vision was lacking. I had no fire anymore. I had no drive. I was very watery. I was in what I call now spiritual bypassing. Spiritual bypassing is like when we think we know the truth, but retrospectively, it was just one step further in our evolutionary process. So eventually, we went back to the States, to America, and we did all our blood tests. We did urine tests, we did poop tests, we did everything to check on our microbiome in our guts, all the levels possibly imaginable. And it's only when I got like the reality of how far we took it with my wife to be so depleted in so many ways. You see, the body is so intelligent. You can be vegetarian or vegan for 5 years if you want, but usually the one who scream the loudest, they haven't been on the journey more than 5 or 10 years. They are like just, and they need to self-generate just like I did. Just so now I can see the wisdom of how extreme those way of eating can be. And again, I'm not saying it's going to be the case for absolutely everyone on the planet, but what I've noticed is as soon as I reintroduced a little bit of fish, a little bit of white fish, a little bit of grass-fed organic beef, some good eggs here and then, some sourdough bread, some butter, some organic butter, wow, everything started to change again. And my brain was not, my nervous system was not so inflamed. I wasn't so hyperactive all the time. I wasn't always like a battery of electricity, just like, I could finally ground myself. I could finally come back in the body. And then everything changed also around my career, around the physical body, the avatar that I have now, everything changed. So yeah, that's the starter. I don't know if you want to add on that or ask
Yeah,
anything,
I
but
have a
that's how
question.
I would position that.
I have a question. How did you and your wife, Gaia, process it from the mental point of view? Because for so many years you had the thought that this is more spiritual
Yeah,
to not eat animal products. So how did you overcome that?
it's an amazing question, Anne Claire, because I'll tell you how it is. It's like, do you guys want to be right, like I thought I was, or do you want something that works and that is sustainable for you? So the idea is, in the early stage of awakening, we try all those new tools and things, and we immediately assume that, oh, that is it, this is the best. And then when you need to deconstruct that, for sure there is an ego death, there is a humbling, there is a realization of how much we don't know. And as I say, when I was vegetarian and vegan and all of that, I mean, I thought I knew everything about proteins and amino acids and the whole jazz of the arguments that my vegans and vegetarian brothers and sisters bring to the table. Um, but actually, for me, it was manageable. But for my wife, it was very difficult. For me personally, I took my ego and I just say, okay, I was wrong. I made a mistake of judgment here, and I was okay with that. For my wife, it was way more of a struggle because she's also more emotional in a sense. And yeah, once you touch raw vegan and stuff, you think that is it. You think that's the last frontier, and it may be true for a few years, but eventually, life shows you otherwise. Um, Again, that is my opinion. I do know two or three friends in my entire life, and I know many people, right? But two or three people who've been vegetarian at least for 20 years and stuff like that, which seems to be a bit less hardcore than raw vegan and fruitarian. But overall, it's a matter of perspective. And once you realize that you were just in another narrative, but if it works for you, it's not a problem. But when it doesn't work anymore, then we have to admit, right? We have to admit that perhaps it was just another step forward.
Yeah. Thank you. What did it change in your energy and in your life force, but also in your connection to? For me, this is very much connected to, I think, sensuality and sexuality too. I had read something years ago from a guy who was vegan and he didn't have an erection in the morning for years. And then he started to eat eggs again. And from the moment he did that, in the morning he was hot again. So
Hmm.
something happened in him that it was it was dead, and then suddenly eggs made him alive again. Did it change anything, if I may ask?
Yeah, it sounds like a psycho magic, right? The eggs help his eggs. So I'm not sure if I can be of help with that specifically, because I think I got that from my lineage, from my old man, my dad, and my grandpa. I've always had high testosterone. Naturally, I've been into sports my whole life to sort of like move that energy, and even when I was vegetarian, it was fine. After a few years of raw vegan, for sure, my sexuality went dormant. Not dead, because I was still pretty young. I was in my 30s, early 30s or what. And then it's just that I was just justifying a loss of libido with becoming closer to God and even more spiritual, like transcending the human needs. So what's interesting is your own psyche is always gonna to try and confirm and support whatever that you're doing. And the mind is very, very smart. Um, so for me, I can just say that if I eat meat, eggs, and butter, and if I don't, for sure, I'm way stronger and my stamina is way higher. Um, but I had also beautiful sexuality when I was a vegetarian, and I don't want people to think that I'm hating on vegetarians or any of that. Okay, that's not my message. My message is it's a little too early to draw conclusions, fam. And you know, if you can sustain something for 10 or 20 years, then here is your answer. But um, with my sexuality being vegan, what happened when I was vegan is your level of sensitivity increase. So if you do a lot of meditation, if you do a lot of yoga, if you do a lot of tantra, it's complementary to eat less fiery food, because once the fire is not so intense, you can feel way more subtler energies, and you can start to pay attention on how this energy is moving through you. So with my sexuality, I had amazing tantric practices for 4 or 5 years, and you know, it was great. It was just helping me to understand kundalini energy, to understand how to move energy, how to channel stuff like that, how to direct energy in your body or with your partner. So there are pros and cons. And again, I see today is to eat less fiery food if you have some health issues, if you need a break and a reset, if you need a detox. It's very healthy to go vegan for 3 months or something, or 6 months. But it's a bit like the high protein diet for the guys. It's like there is a balance in all things. And we went from eating, being so disconnected from what's in our plate. If you ask a child today where the beef or the chicken come from, they have no idea. They're not even connected unless they grew on the land with farmers and stuff. They don't fully understand it's a life, it's another animal, it's another being. Um, but so yeah, there are just all those back and forth and inner realizations. It's just that in the end, I feel wisdom comes with balance. And if you guys need a year or two of vegetarianism to heal some trauma, to uncoil your nervous system, to learn how to feel yourself, I couldn't feel myself in my 20s, and Claire. That's why I had so many addictions. I needed the intensity when I was driving my car, when I was fucking, of course, and that's why I'm using that word, because that's what it was. I was just fucking. I would feel my testosterone, and it was a compulsion, and I just needed to let it out on anyone, because it wasn't even about the person. It was about, so I was disconnected. I could not feel myself. So veganism, vegetarianism, all of that helped me to really get in touch with how my body feel when I do things, and it helped me to raise my awareness. But ultimately it started to tax my body. So then your bone matrix get you lose bone mass just to balance the inner alchemy of everything you put in your body. There are just so many things that take place. So yeah, honestly, I came back to where I started, which is a Mediterranean lifestyle. And what does that mean? You look at Italy, south of France, Greece, all in that part of the world, people live very well and very long,
And
till
they're
the
not
90s.
fat.
They're not fat. They live a good life. And all it is to eat local, seasonal. Of course, you got to stay away from everything that's toxic, all the Monsanto shit, all the GMO, all the pesticides. Like, that's a no-brainer. We need to cut the pollution. But to be afraid of meat or eggs or bread, I think turned into a mental disease that we ourselves just nourish until our body is showing us, like, hey, you know what, maybe you should have a little bit of chicken for a month, or bone broth, and see how you truly feel. Can you be humble enough to do that? And if you can't, then life will show you, just the same way it showed myself, my wife, and all my friends. Because, living in Bali for 7 years, I mean, everybody tries that as well there. And I've seen quite a bit of unsuccessful story. And usually people come out of veganism, and guess which diet they pick up, and Claire,
The other
after this.
extreme?
Yeah, they go full carnivore, and it's all about raw meat and 20 kilos of meat in your plate every day. So it's funny to see how our mind is always swinging from one polarity to the next, until we land on the middle in our own, whatever is wise to us.
Yeah. You are with Gaia, you're preparing to create a family and you want to welcome a baby whenever the baby will be ready to come.
Mhm.
And do you want to share a few tips for preparing yourself as a man and Gaia as a woman so that you can be ready for that physically and on all level, actually?
Interesting. Well, so back when I was doing all those detox and those lifestyles, yeah, I was under the impression that the cleaner my body is, the higher the caliber of the soul you can call. So let me
Mm.
say that again. Because everything is frequencies and resonance, my spiritual ego at the time was like, hey, if I'm really, really squeaky clean and so is my partner, then we can attract a little Jesus or Mohammed or Buddha or whatever your views are with all of that, guys. But it was kind of a spiritual ego there. Um, these days, how I prepare with Gaia is simple, because obviously we've done like nearly 12 years plus of that. So I think that's more than enough to be clean enough. I'm done with being so pure that the idea of having some chocolates just drives you insane. Like, this is toxic, guy. This is unhealthy to be so rigid. It's not even self-discipline at that level. It's self-harm, in my opinion. So how we prepare with Gaia is, actually, she's working on her back. She has a bit of scoliosis going on, and we realized it would be wise to help her with her scoliosis before she has to carry 10 or 20 kilos for the baby and stuff. So, she's doing some of that. For me as a man, it's just understanding the commitment and the implications of inviting an extra little soul to the tribe, and so financially, it's an engine. It gives you. I feel lucky, to be honest, Anne Claire. I could have had a kid in my 20s, and who I was in my 20s, I was so dysfunctional and chaotic and in pain. That would have been a terrible idea. So, how I prepared is I've done the work, and then I felt ready now to have a child. In the last 2 or 3 years, I was like, could I be a dad? And I was like, wow, it's going to be a super cool experience, actually. I'm sure it's going to be amazing. Um, So yeah, we just try and maintain a healthy, balanced lifestyle, and we are building our business and our community. Um, because community is also a big part of bringing a child into the world. If you have some very close friends and stuff, everybody can raise your kid along with you, kind of thing. So that's an interesting model and idea for us, rather than struggling and not being able to sleep and function, and just to have a few friends and our parents to help us out. And for the birth, of course, we would look into orgasmic birth and home birth and water birth and stuff like that, but within reason. Like, we also want to be close enough to a hospital if may we need, just so everything. Again, like, I bring a lot of that in my conversation, but for me, it's all about balance. It doesn't matter which topic we are talking about. If I find myself triggered about anything, I know that I haven't found the wisdom. I haven't found the balance yet. So yeah, with baby, we will try to have a natural birth, and we open to it. The portal is open. So I didn't even know, I'm 40, and I didn't even know that a woman can only be pregnant 5 days a month, 5 days of the month. It's such a mystery because we don't have sexual education at school. So there are many interesting things that I'm discovering about how smart the human body is. And
It's beautiful. Thank you for sharing. I love that. And
pleasure.
I had watched a documentary a while ago. I don't remember the name, but it was about placenta. And it was a very short documentary, like 20 minutes, about vegan mothers and mothers who were eating more omnivore. And and we could see the placenta of one being kind of white and not very rich, and the other one being full of blood and very rich. And that was such an interesting thing to just witness that, the difference. And so I think, especially when you want to be a mother and when you're breastfeeding and everything, the quality of the food that you take, the nourishment, really feeling the nourishment of it, is so important too.
That's a very interesting point, because one would expect that the vegan mother has a healthier placenta, but actually, what the documentary was showing is, because it's such a stressful experience, basically, your body, we don't understand how the liver works, actually. Even science today does not understand the 2000 functions plus that the liver can produce. So the liver is a factory. If you give if you give your you can eat potatoes for 1 year straight, and you will still be alive, and your liver will still convert that somehow into fuel. I try to keep it simple, guys. I'm not here to go so deep and splitting hair in half, but I'm trying to give concepts for the sake of keeping the podcast short. And but what I'm saying is, when you look at those placentas, the vegan mom, which is already so depleted for herself, but she doesn't know it yet, then her placenta is also very dry. It's not very elastic. It's not very plump and hydrated. You just see it's it's lacking nutrition. And if you don't see it like that, then I'm sorry, friend. Like, we cannot be in the same room, in the sense of, I mean, we can, but like, let's not talk about that, because facts are facts at the end of the day versus opinions. So yeah, I think it's important to get all your oils, your good fats. People are afraid of dairy, they are afraid of meat, and it has a lot to do with how we're producing those products today. But if you get closer to a biodynamic agriculture, regenerative agriculture, you will get all the benefits from those foods.
Yeah. It's not so difficult. You just have to be curious and do some research in order to find a good product.
Yeah, and try things. just actually try it for yourself for 3 or 6 months. Not for 2 days, because you can see nothing in 2 days. But if you do some blood tests and poop tests with your microbiome in your guts, you will see what kind of colonies you have of little guys in your guts. And if you're always bloated, a lot of vegans are always bloated, always digestive problems and stuff, very low B12, K2, vitamins CoQ10. The list is endless. And yeah, I think I've said it before. I think that's a healthy tool on our evolutionary process, but we shouldn't take it as our new spiritual identity, thinking that we're better than everyone else because we don't eat meat or dairy. I think
Yeah.
it's harmful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just had a thought about the investment that it is, because it does cost a little bit more money to spend more in quality products. But I would like to share that the result is that you have more energy, and when you have more energy, you can function and create value in the world, and you make more money. Like you and I, we're the examples of that, because every day we feel great, then we can do great, and then the money comes back. And when we feel shitty, we cannot do anything. It's just we're just in pain, so we're not creating any value and we're not making any money. So it feels so obvious to me that although we spend so much money in food at home, this
Hmm.
is the only way. I don't see another way to live. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, the fuel you put in your car dictates how far it's gonna to go, right? So I spend tremendously on quality products, and I never look at the price for what I eat and drink. What I look at is, can I source a product with less than 4 or 5 ingredients in it? I cannot eat anything that has an extensive list of stuff in it. And yeah, it's self love, it's self worth. I see buying, if you spend $200 in grocery per week instead of $500 or $600, what tend to happen is later down the track, 20, 30 years down the track, then you have a big bill because the body is breaking down and now we need surgery or something like. And what was interesting when I shifted from my rigid superior mindset of veganism kind of approach, and I'm not saying all vegans are like that, once again, that was just my personal journey. I know some vegans who are very sweet and loving as well. I'm saying me, for my personality type, I was judging even more people when I was vegan. And so even though we don't put crap in our body, our mind is kind of like often onto negative comparative judgment kind of frequency. And like you said, as I found my peace with that nutrition part, yes, the rest of my life fell into place as well, because I was more flexible, because I was more enjoying, you know. um yeah.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think we're gonna stop there for this episode, and I suggest that we do another one. So, do you wanna add anything else about food before we wrap that up?
About food, I suppose it depends, who are you in the world, and what does your physical avatar require. Okay, so if you are an artist and you draw or paint all day, you may not need the same body than if you're a fireman, for example. So first and foremost, you just need to understand who you are in the world and what kind of body is gonna to serve you. And when you are clear with that, you can then eat the foods for that, pretty much. And food is a source of love. I haven't touched on how difficult it was when I was vegan and vegetarian to socialize with all my friends, my family, meeting new people, being that person. Like, they get above and beyond to cook something out of their way of cooking to try and please me. And then I'm like, oh, is this gluten free? Oh, is this that? Is it? And so you become a bit obnoxious, And I'm sorry to thread like that so brutally, but that was my experience as well. So food is love, food is energy, and food, guys, hear me out. Food is just such a small part of what you put into your nervous system. Everything that you look at every day, everything that, so the clothes that you wear on your skin, the shampoo that you use, the everything. Do you live in a big city with a lot of dysfunctional, crazy people around you? Because even their morphogenetic fields are creating a soup of waves and frequencies, and you are feeding off that too. So to put so much focus on just what we eat is a little, for lack of a better word, it's just immature. It's not a finished wisdom. It's the quest, it's the path, it's the journey. And if you are listening to this podcast today, and if you've been vegan for 3 months, maybe you're going to hate me and you won't understand what I shared today. But if you've been vegan for 3, 4, 5 years, maybe 6 years, and you've noticed your health actually starting to degenerate, whereas the first year or two it was beneficial for you, then you will probably receive the permission to loosen up and understand what we eat. Yes, we are what we eat, but we don't eat just in the plate.
Beautiful conclusion. Thank
Très bien.
you.
Well, I'm
Très
happy we had
bien.
that conversation. I wanted to let that
Me
out
too.
of my chest because there is a lot of confusion out there, and it's very difficult to find the correct information. Big pharma is trying to poison us all for
Yeah.
profit, and we know that. And it's hard to be a human being who doesn't know what to eat. But let's go back to what our grandparents were eating, and that's a good start. You can refine it from there.
Yeah. Well, this is a great introduction for the next episode. So, just for now, if people want to follow you and find out more about what you have to offer, how can they find you?
They can find me on Instagram. I feel I'm gonna have to get banned pretty soon, actually, Claire. But
If you're doing it well.
yeah, yeah. They call me Fab with a underscore in between. I'm sure you will leave a little something
Yeah,
under. Yeah. Instagram at
we'll
this
put it
time is
in the
the best way
description.
to get in touch. Hmm.
Okay. And you have an online school with your wife teaching people about crypto and how to be sovereign in their finances.
Absolutely. And Claire, I think as you wake up, it's very important to learn how to manifest yourself in the world and financially, to really manifest the fullness of what you are. It's very difficult to be a good person and no money in the bank. I've been that for nearly 30 years. I don't come from a rich family or anything, so it's a pleasure to empower my brothers and sisters through crypto, which is just one vehicle, but it works so well. And yeah, that's what we do. We just help people to grow their bank account so they
Yeah.
can buy land and manifest their visions, create those retreat centers, those healing centers, and all that.
Yeah. It's beautiful. Thank you, Fab. If you've enjoyed this episode, please share it around you to your community and friends and family, to the vegans you know. And we'll meet you in another episode where we dive deeper into conspiracy theories, which is just
Mm.
truth. Okay. Bye bye.